lightning, there was thunder, 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 thunder. Guys, it's your girl, geekxxchic, and I'm back with another review of Black Lightning. It is for episode 6, which was called 3 Sevens, the Book of Thunder. I believe. It was a really long title, I'm sorry, but something in that realm. This was a really good episode. I mean, I keep saying that every episode of this show that I watch, but it really is a good episode. I was wondering, you know, the beginning half of it, the pacing was a little bit different than the other episodes have been, and so I started to think that maybe we're just going to have more of a quiet, kind of more of an introspective, expositional type of episode, but nope. That took an upswing in the tail end of this episode, let me tell you, and wow, my favorite part was definitely at the end. That was cool. That was cool, like, that's the way you introduce a new character or a new superhero to the scene, is how they did it in this episode. But before we get into that, let's just kind of go through. I got tons of notes. We learned some things about Black Lightning's powers more. I love this. I've said this before. I love how this show doesn't just dump a bunch of Black Lightning's power stuff on us in like one big old dump. Like they could have done that in the first 2 episodes, but they keep peeling back a layer, you know, each week of, oh, he can do this, oh, and by the way, he can do this, and by the way, he can do that. And that's pretty cool. That was really, really cool. And this week we learned that he heals himself, that apparently his electricity stimulates something that actually causes his body to heal faster. I think she said twice as fast as normal. So he still, obviously, we've seen it already, that he still will sustain bruises and get some scars to a degree, but they do obviously heal pretty fast. He was able to jump in the suit and get out there and be fighting again fairly quickly. So apparently it's slower than it used to be, so unfortunately this is something where I guess as Black Lightning gets older, his powers are probably going to wane. Oh, also we had Gambo. Who's Gambo? We had Gabi talk about the reason, like, is, you know, we had, remember I mentioned last week that the way that Jefferson was acting with, you know, just being so single-minded about Tobias and the other guy whose name slipped right out of my head after I heard it like 15 times in this episode. You know, maybe it was, like, maybe this is what Lynn was referring to. Maybe there is a drug-like effect to his powers, but I don't know. Gabi said it was just adrenaline. He's claiming it's just adrenaline. There's no addiction. There's no anything like that. It's just adrenaline, and that's, you know, him responding to it, which I believe could be true. I can't think that fighting people and shocking people and all that wouldn't get your, you know, get you all excited to a degree. So we'll see whether or not that's true. We already know now that Gabi, wow, do we know after this episode that Gabi is shady as hell. You know, Gabi will lie and manipulate and say whatever he has to get the job done, as it were. So that was basically what we learned about Jefferson and Black Lightning this episode. The stuff about Lynn. I never thought I would say this, but, yeah, Lynn, I had to agree with her in this episode. You know, I mean, I like her, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I was a little annoyed with her in the first couple episodes with how harsh she was being on Jefferson about the Black Lightning stuff, until, of course, their daughters got hurt, and suddenly she's like, yeah, you can go Black Lightning and get them back. And it's like, no, Lynn, you can't have it both ways. You can't be Black Lightning today and not tomorrow to suit you. It's got to make sense. But I had to agree with her in this episode in that, you know, Gabi using her as the dial-a-doctor every time, you know, Jefferson just about kills himself for being reckless, which is in this past, or in the past episode, his butt being on the ground nearly getting killed was because he was reckless. You know, I don't blame her for being like, you know, I didn't choose this. Like, I divorced you because I don't want to be part of this life. I don't want to be the person to see you broken and bloody and me have to try to put you back together. Like, I don't want that. That's why our marriage dissolved. So for you to pull me back in like this because I know your secret and I can patch you up without questions is not fair. And it's totally true. Like, that is the reality. It is an unfair ask of Lynn when she's made it clear that she doesn't want to have a part of this. And then on top of that, You know, the fact that when she was there patching him up, looking at everything, he's just like, oh, I'm glad you're here. I'm just going to flirt with you, be lovey-dovey. It's like, no, no, no. Like, Jefferson, read the room. Read the room. Understand where she's coming from. She's not doing this necessarily out of the goodness of her heart. She's doing it because A, she loves you, and B, because you're the father of her children. You already know her stance on this. And I'm glad that Lynn kind of reminded him that, like, no, 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 I'm not here because I'm on board. I'm here because y'all keep dragging me back in, and because I'm a good-hearted person. I'm a doctor. And my oath says that I can't just know you about to die and I'm just going to ignore that. You know, that's not me. So I had to agree with Lynn. I had to admit it. I was in Lynn's court this episode. Jeff and Gabi were out of line, and they're going to have to either figure out something to either convince her to really fully get on board, or they need to find a medic, because it's not fair. It really isn't fair to her. But now, you know, as the situation has changed with Miss Anissa, and now that she knows this, this might be what might tip, you know, Lynn into wanting to be on board with this whole thing again. Sorry, and just while we're on the topic of Lynn, I just also remembered the brain scans. We didn't go any further about it, but I have no doubt that they showed it to us for a reason. We saw the brain scan that her assistant, aka the person who's clearly in Tobias's pocket, bring in for the kids who had been taken the green light. And we see that most kids who take green light, they're instantly addicted, and they also, you know, overdose and die. And we saw that the brain activity, or whatever we saw, the stimulus in the brain activity from the green light user was almost identical to that of Jefferson. So WTF. My theory, my hypothesis on this is that whatever drug they've synthesized is something that is the same stuff that's going to be in the vial that the mama tested, or I don't know if she even got a chance to test it yet, but the same thing that was in the vaccination that was given to Jefferson and all those other kids. I think they're trying to create more metas. I feel like there's probably a tiny subsection of these people who are taking green light that aren't getting addicted, but conversely actually developing powers. And for the people who aren't conducive to it, they're just becoming addicts and just dying. That's my theory. I could be wrong, but that's what I think it is. I think that the same people who created Jefferson and the other 8 metas out there are trying to do the same thing again, but on a bigger scale. And I think they're going to try to do is recruit them and basically use them to become like this super group, like this super underground group of, you know, criminal masterminds or whatever, or just a super criminal organization, which is actually a pretty genius idea. So I have my theories. There's some more that I'm going to come up to when I talk about Lady Eve. But yes, I feel like that might be something going on, and that's what those brain scans may lead to. But that might be a massive leap that I'm taking right there. I could be so wrong. We learned some stuff about the relationship between Gabi and Jefferson. I mean, some of it was kind of hinted to early in the first episode, I believe, about Gabi being very close to Jefferson. But the raising him was kind of a new thing, about how they said that he basically raised Jefferson. I didn't realize Jefferson's dad had died when he was still a child, but I'm also wondering, you know, knowing what Gabi knows and all the stuff that Jefferson's, you know, done in the past, I'm really surprised that Gabi is so... Actually, never mind. I just answered my own question, because now I remember this conversation between him. As I was like, why is he so against him killing Tobias? But it's not just because of he's not just trying to save Jefferson's soul, despite what he's pitched to Lynn. It really is because him and Lady Eve have an agreement. And the agreement is that Lady Eve is not supposed to touch the Pierce family, and in return, Gabi stays away from Tobias. So that's the real reason that he doesn't want Jefferson to kill Tobias, and why he lied about Tobias being alive. So I was right. Y'all were like, oh, come on, Gabi's just trying to protect you. No. I said there was something shady about him not telling, because I'm like, there's no reason for him not to tell Jefferson. There's really no reason not to. But now we know. Anyways, my point is I was right about it being some shady stuff. Gabi is all kinds of shady. We need to keep an eye, 3 eyes on that man, not just both. We need an extra one. Let's talk about some of the moral issues that were brought up. Every episode brings up a handful of moral issues that are happening either with black society in the U.S. right now, and to an extent on a bigger scale, and also typically just things about black culture and people of color. That I really liked was the topic of blackness. What does it mean to be black in a show called Black Lightning? Now, if you've, I think we all have heard, I mean, I personally experienced, that's why I really appreciate this, because I personally heard this myself. I'm sure that there are some critics out there who feel like Jefferson and his family aren't black enough. There is this, even within the black community, there is sadly some very narrow-minded and outdated belief systems about what being black is. And I do feel like this is much stronger in the American black society than any other, but there is this idea that, you know, if you're not speaking in Ebonics, if you're not talking in jive, if you're not, you know, a lover of only X type of music, if you don't do these things that they feel go into this box of being black, you're trying to be something else. You know, in the show we saw that Jennifer was being teased for acting white, dancing like a white girl, acting like a white girl. And there was this wonderful talk with Jefferson and Jen, and, you know, Jefferson basically saying, like, there's no rules to being black. It's not something that you just define based on these X factors. Anything under the sun can be black. And I love that he said that because it's so true. Black people are interested in everything. You know, it never made sense to me, the whole categorization of this is white, this is black, this is Asian, this is Latin. No, it's not. Just because there are groups that may potentially gravitate more towards certain thing doesn't mean that they own it or that it's something that's only something available to them. So I just thought it was a great message and a great thing out there, because I know some black people too, some of them really struggle, you know, with feeling like they're not black enough. And what your blackness means is completely up to you. Nobody else can tell you if you're black enough or how black you are. That is you. You define who you are. So again, love the messaging there. So that kind of rolls naturally into the whole thing with Khalil and Jennifer. We saw in the last episode that Tobias got to Khalil and fed him a lot of garbage about how Black Lightning was responsible for what's going on with him, and basically just feeding into the negative space that Khalil was inevitably going to fall into when he realized that, you know, his paralysis was going to be permanent. I really do feel badly for Jen. You know, she's trying so hard, but, you know, the things that she was saying to her sister were so real. You know, Jen is a 16-year-old girl. She's got literally her entire life ahead of her, and to take on the responsibility of being a partner to somebody who is going to have to adjust to a life of not being able to walk, that transition is a very difficult one, and it's very emotional, and it's tumultuous, and it's a lot. It's heavy. It's really, really heavy. And at her age, and the fact that the two of them, you know, they'd only been dating for a couple of weeks, that's a really heavy price tag to deal with. And I think it's very mature of Jen to look at it objectively, because she's at an age where, even though she may understand intellectually why, you know, she should potentially stay with him, the reality is she's still a teenager. In the real world, they would have suggested that Khalil really take this time for him to figure out his new life and deal with his emotions on his own, because it has to do with him. As much as he may care about Jen, this is his journey, and he's got to be the person to deal with it and figure out how to live his life going forward, and that can't be dependent on who you're dating at the time. Yeah, great advice with Jen. Poor girl. She's, you know, she's not having a good year between the bullying and now Khalil, but I feel like these are all catalysts that are going to build up to her powers. And I get the sense we're not going to have Jen come into her powers this season. Or if she does come into them, I really think it's going to be like a season finale thing. That brings us right into the fight. That was so good. In a million years, I did not think that that was the way that they were going to have it happen. I never thought it would be a thing where poor Lynn would figure out, holy crap, that's our daughter. And before she can even say anything because her mouth's taped up, Jefferson shows up, assumes that this is the bad guy, starts attacking, and they go at it. What? That was great. It was so authentic and it felt awesome. Because so many times when you have a fight like that, you figure out what's the best way to stage this? How do we do this so it makes sense? I feel like that was done so perfectly. And the fact that they both kind of went full out, like as soon as Jefferson realized, holy crap, this chick is a meta, you know, he turned up the volume, right? He's like, you know, I'm going to have to make sure I really get to this girl. And Anissa, I was right. My theory was that she's not necessarily strong. She can manipulate, it seems like she can actually manipulate her density. So she can make herself super, super dense, which allows her to be able to move objects that are, you know, heavier than her. And obviously, as I said, block bullets. So she is bulletproof if she's paying attention. She's got to breathe, which I'm hoping is something we can fix, because that's going to be very inconvenient if she's really excited. But yes, the fight was great. There's not much to say about it outside of the fact that it was awesome, because it's one of those things where you're kind of rooting for both of them, but at the same time, you're like, no, stop, you're hurting each other, don't do it. And I knew, oh, Jefferson's face when he realized that he had shocked the crap out of his baby and like thrown her up against the walls like a rag doll. I mean, in a way, I mean, it's great that, you know, he go protect his, you know, he's going to protect his ex at all costs, but obviously sucks that it was his baby girl. But yeah, it's going to be a real interesting conversation next week, and I cannot wait to hear it. I cannot wait to see these two sit down. I am interested to see whether or not Gambi's going to get in the game now that, you know, he's there, but like, is he going to want to get in and be like, let's start training her, let me get her a way better, at the very least, he's got to get her a better outfit, because I hate that outfit. I hate her costume. I have no idea if that's what she looks like in the comics, but I'm really hoping it's not. I'm not about it. Not the hair, not the mask, or not even the mask, not the face paint, and certainly not the outfit. So anyway, that was great. Favorite moment of the episode, hands down, and I really hope that, I'm hoping that this will be a catalyst for him to start looking at Jen. I hope that mom and dad now think, okay, if Anissa's got powers, then maybe Jen's gonna get powers, and they're gonna kind of keep an eye on her going forward. So yeah, that was that. That was awesome. The only little thing I want to tack on to the end here is the stuff between Eve and Gambi. It was small but massive. We found out, as I mentioned in the last episode, I was talking about the ASA. It's an agency, and it looks like Gambi has been in it. I think he's still in it, and has been an OG, like an OG of it. And Lady Eve, or Evelyn, we now know her name is Evelyn, because that's what people who really know you, they call you by your full name. Evelyn apparently was trained by Gambi. That's the connection there. But she left the agency, clearly to pursue a life of crime, has joined something else, and I thought the ASA was where she still was, and that's what she was talking to Tobias about last episode, or the episode before. But it looks like she left the ASA and there's some other big syndicate out there. But whatever, I'm assuming the whole mentor-mentee relationship between Gambi and Eve was enough of a respectful one that Eve is respecting Gambi's request that the Pierces stay off limits as far as her criminal organization, and in exchange, she's asked him to protect Tobias. Now that's really weird to me, like why is she protecting Tobias so much, especially when she's threatening to grind his bones? But at least now we have a better understanding of what this connection is in the background. Now I'm hoping we'll get a little bit more information as to who, like, I feel like either the ASA or the company that she's with, or maybe that whoever she's with now is just a whole subsection of the ASA, but I have a feeling that the ASA are the ones who are creating metas. And perhaps the ASA realized how screwed up it was after what happened to Jefferson and the other 9 or 8 kids, and decided to stop. And maybe Lady Eve got with, you know, some other people in the organization who were like, nah, actually this looks pretty good. Or maybe she decided to take that formula and sell it. Who knows? But I am more interested in her story for sure now. I want to know how she defected and why she defected, and what got her through the door. Because I feel like the key to this whole meta thing, at least in Freeland and around, comes back to Gambi and Evelyn. So that was cool, and I definitely look forward to seeing more of that. They also said meta this episode, which is huge. They used the term metahuman, so love it. Ties it to the whole verse, the Flash verse, the Arrowverse. loosely, but still ties it in. But anyways, that is it, guys. I talked a lot about this episode, but there was a lot in there, as usual. Great episode as usual. I love this show. It's so good. It's such a breath of fresh air. I'm really saddened by the fact that it's a short season, but honestly, there's such packed episodes that, like, I'm kind of happy that it's a shorter season just in that it's giving us such good quality episodes. So that's it for me, guys. What did you think about this episode? Like, what about the fight? You just tell me about the fight, guys. I mean, a lot went down, but tell me what you thought about that fight. Was that not one of the best on-screen fights? Like, and not even for the choreography and stuff, because that was okay, but really just when you think about everything that surrounded that fight, how awesome was that? Please let me know what your thoughts are below, and let's get a discussion to talk about it. And if you like this video, guys, please click like, and if you want to see more from this geeky face, go ahead and click subscribe. Until next time,